Sex workers on Reddit. What's your approach for special cases of clients, like obviously depressed, sad, sick individuals etc? What was the most unfortunate case you've ever encountered and how did it affect you? TW. Bestiality. In terms of people who are depressed, have anxiety, etc., you encounter hundreds of them. Like anyone in any industry would. Often you listen to them while they talk about their lives. Sometimes you hold them while they cry. Sometimes you just laugh along with them about the absurdities of the world we live in. Empathy and sex work are pretty intertwined. I've had a few insult types. I just refuse to see them again because they don't respect me, and a client who doesn't respect you is not a client you want to see. The only really sick one for me was a guy who told me a story about this time he was outside peeing, and his dog started licking his dick, and was apparently loving it. I was polite, but I thought I made it clear enough that it really wasn't something I was interested in hearing about. As he was having his shower at the end, we were chatting in the bathroom, and he told me he had some videos of his dog, and then I started thinking, right, so it wasn't this one-time accidental thing then. And would I be interested in seeing them? I was still polite, but said that was definitely not something I wanted. The next day I received a follow-up thank you email, not uncommon, from him. It had an attachment called *K9.mov or something like that. He said I would show you a video of me being licked by my doggy, and how he makes me come. The dog enjoys the taste obviously, and there's no way he gets hurt, or does anything he doesn't want to, and offered to send more, but said it would just be a once-off if not. I panicked and deleted it, thinking I've now got freaking bestiality on my computer. Thanks dude. He tried to contact me a few times after that for bookings. I ignored a few requests, and then responded to one basically saying dude, you sent me dog porn, after I made it clear that was not something I wanted. Please don't contact me again. Oh, he also smelt and had disgusting teeth. But that's depressingly not entirely uncommon. How did it make me feel? Not much, to be honest. You get a pretty thick skin in this industry and you learn to not take on other people's shit. I met an older man one night while working as an escort. He asked me if I'd like a drink, and then we started talking. We talked all the way through the hour, and when it was up, he tipped me $100 and asked me to come again the following Sunday. He wasn't able to get an erection, and so sex was not possible. He wanted a friend, and he found one in me. At the time I was on heroin, and hanging out with him reminded me of who I was. When my boyfriend beat me up one night, I called him, and he came and picked me up. Take off your sunglasses, he said. I took them off and showed him my eyes, black and swollen. God damn it. He took me home and took care of me until I healed. The friendship persisted. I went to prison and he wrote and called and sent money. I got clean in prison, and I found God, and I tried to tell him about it, but he was not having it. Don't ever talk to me about that God stuff again, he growled. When I got out I started a 12-step group and continued in my relationship with God. I was able to get my son back. I got a job. I went to his house one day, clean and clear-headed, and he was so happy for me. Then he pulled out an old family Bible he just wanted to show me. When he opened it, a Polaroid of a naked woman came out. He was humiliated. He crumbled it in his hand. He didn't want me to see that side of him. I complimented his Bible, but didn't press him about God. A few days later I got a phone call. He had died. He was a good friend at a time in my life when we could both use a friend. I'll never forget him. He showed me kindness. I guess I needed to write this for me. Reading it over I see that he wasn't the one who was depressed, sick etc. I was 13 years later, I'm still sober, and I still hold him in high regard in my heart. A lot of guys used to be really ashamed about it, which I always thought was sad. I loved my job, and the way I saw it was we're all safe consenting adults. I'm making a living and they should have a pressure-free, shame-free way to enjoy themselves. We're all humans, and the fact is lots of us like sex. There shouldn't be any shame attached. Also, I'd sometimes get guys who pretty much just wanted a nude female therapist. I remember having this one customer once though. This was at a strip club I worked at, and as soon as we went in a private room I started getting undressed, and he quietly asked me not to and to just sit with him. Not unusual. So I did as he asked. He was a really intelligent bloke, an older guy, seemed like a sort of high up successful educated guy. He was really apologetic to me for just wanting to chat, and I, as usual when this happens, tried to be reassuring and explained that if he just wants to chat I really am more than happy to. In the room with me, it sort of became obvious that he thought he didn't deserve to look at me or at women at all. It was really sad. It wasn't about me at all. You could just see that this guy really hated himself. Like he just seemed so upset and disgusted at himself. And he was absolutely lovely. I wish I could help guys to not feel that way about themselves, but sometimes there's just not much you can do. I worked as a pro dom many years ago, and there was one particular session that I'll always remember. The gentleman was in his 40s or 50s, and initially he just said he wanted a spanking session. During our negotiation right beforehand he told me it was important to him that I bring him to tears. He broke about 45 minutes into the session, and it was like a dam breaking. He sobbed and hyperventilated and wailed while I held him, stroking his hair and soothing him and whispering reassuring things for nearly an hour. When he eventually calmed down enough to talk, he told me that his mother had died suddenly 5 years before, and that despite being devastated by it, he hadn't been able to cry, not once. His grief had been trapped inside for all that time. He couldn't let go enough to express it before that day. He called me about once a week for several months after, just to thank me again, and each time he sounded brighter, happier. By the last time we talked he sounded like a completely different person than the man I had met. It was wonderful to see him blossom. It's not a job I would ever return to, but that experience with him made the entire job worth it. So I should probably use a throwaway, but fuck it. I was a sugar baby in my early 20s as a way to make extra cash. It wasn't necessarily a pay for sex type agreement. More of mutually beneficial relationship, where I would get gifts and an allowance in return for a no strings attached girlfriend and boyfriend type relationship. Anyhow, a guy had seen my profile and asked me out on a date. First date went well. He was shy and awkward and ugly if we're being honest, but was incredibly kind and polite. He didn't try anything sexual, and that was a good sign for me cause most guys are just in for that, which inced my deal. Second date, I agreed to go to his house to watch a movie. When I showed up he explained that his wife had recently left him. She had cancer for 4 years, and he was her main caretaker, and after she was cured she up and left him for a much younger man. He asked if I would wear his wife's robe and jewelry and perfume, which was very sad, but also extremely creepy. He showed me pictures of their wedding and vacations, and he talked about how he wanted kids and never had them cause she didn't. It was so sad. After that night I cut ties. I told him it seems his heart was too broken and he was just lonely, but I didn't want to have him pay me for companionship.